spiritual state of unbelief is desperation. Voice the older age, father of malice, holes like eyes, heart of the unborn.
Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about today is the yeast we're going to be using. This is, if I can get it right here, Y Yeast 1056 American Ale. Upon studying it says it's tolerant up to about 12%. So hopefully for what we're doing today, that'll work. The kind of cool thing about these is the smack pack. You kind of just work into the corner. You can feel there's a container there, and smack it and give it a shake. Looks like I didn't quite get it there. Try again. All right, I got it that time. So then what's in here is the yeast and nutrient and activator, so you don't have to create a yeast starter for this. It's all in here, and this will set for about 2 to 3 hours, and it'll puff up, and when we're ready to pitch the yeast, this will be ready for us. All right, so what I'm making today is called Graff. Graff is a fictional beer, or actually cider beer, from the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. I believe it's mentioned in book 6. If you haven't read the Dark Tower series, here's your homework. Get that done. It's just part of your personal development, really, and maybe personal enjoyment, but if you haven't read those books, it's certainly time. So what it is, the first time I made Graff, I got a recipe from this book, Everything Hard Cider, which when I first started in home brew, I was really just doing cider, and I found that recipe in here and made it. It's the only thing Sophie's ever liked that I've made, which is kind of funny. To me, the recipe in that book kind of had a ketchup aftertaste, if you can imagine that. That's cool for me. Ketchup is one of my #1 food groups, but it was kind of strange. Today, the recipe I'm going to be doing comes from Michael Heath and his buddy James. It was featured on an episode of Brewing TV. If you want to check that out, it's episode 68, where they talk about all things Graff and make another recipe that's out there. But the Michael Heath and James recipe is more of a dry stout style Graff, or cider beer, if you will. Some people have suggested the name Siberia. It's kind of cool. I'm going to just be calling it Graff, and I'll get into the ingredients. And if you want to get this recipe, if you go to brewingtv.com/recipes, the liquid malt extract version I'm doing is there, as also the all grain recipe if you're doing it that way, and it's very interesting. So we'll get into the ingredients. All right, so I haven't weighed these out and separated them yet, but I'm about to. For the steeping of the grains at basically around 165 for 30 minutes. The first thing we'll have will be a full pound of the Crystal 120. Then there's going to be 12 ounces of the Special B. This guy right here, we'll have 12 ounces of that. Smoked malt will be 8 ounces, which is one of these. Also, roasted barley will be 8 ounces, and chocolate wheat will be 4 ounces. There's your chocolate wheat, 4 ounces of that. Oh, yeah, and peated malt, that's your smoked. So once those steep for 30 minutes, then we'll take it off the boil and add the amber malt. You got 3.5 pounds of that. Then we'll return it to a boil, and for an hour, for the hops, we'll have, for the full hour, there'll be an ounce of Cascade, and an ounce of Centennial. And then at the end of the last 20 minutes, we'll have an additional ounce and a half of the Centennial. And then we'll cool it down and pitch our yeast.
To love and serve Him is why God made everyone. God is cruel. When you know desperation in the town of desperation, there's a demon that
I just poured it back and forth to aerate it after it cooled. Added the 3 gallons of apple cider, and just a point on the apple cider. If you're not doing it from fresh apples and pressing it, you just kind of want to be sure, you know, ingredients are water, apple from concentrate, and ascorbic acid. Ascorbic acid is okay. It's vitamin C, keeps the cider from browning. It won't affect your fermentation, but you want to watch out for, if you're using store-bought cider to do this, that you don't buy something with weird chemicals in it that might hinder your fermentation or sometimes even stall it out completely. So now it's time to pitch the yeast.
there's a demon that can hide. But just like a vampire, it's never really alive. Voice of the unborn, trying to coax the victims to their death. Way in the world looking for the boy, a literary boy's last breath. The town of desperation, that's a demon that can hide. But just like a vampire, it's never really alive.
Okay, now that's beer. All right, so here we have the Graff done. It's gone through 2 weeks of primary, 2 weeks of secondary fermentation, and then 2 weeks in the bottle for it to carbonate. This is the fictional beverage from the mind of Stephen King. Now, reality, we're going to give it a shot. Not really heavily carbonated. I noticed right off the bat it is pretty dark beer.
Whoa, that's weird.
Yeah, and the Graff I've made before wasn't dark like this, and it was weird, and well, I'll tell you, this is weird. I get the hops, I kind of get some of, there is peated malt in this, I kind of get a little bit of that.
Yeah.
So this is definitely something different. You come to my booth on June 17th at the Beer Festival, Lakeport, California. You're going to be able to try this. It's something you probably never tried before, and you may like it. Or it may not be your style, but come out and try it.
I would
Cheers.
say it's an acquired taste, so come try to acquire it.
Yeah, I'll just keep drinking it until I like it.
All right, so Dave here. I was initially off-put because this looks in the glass like beer and like a not kidding around beer. And so, but I have to remind myself that it's not beer. And it's interesting in